Good evening, America. This is Angie, and you're watching N3 Primetime, where we dive into the stories that matter to you. Tonight, Gary will unravel a stark warning from President Trump regarding a potential World War III tied to chaos in the Middle East and Israel. We'll dive deep into the terrifying hints of potential terror threats right here on American soil and scrutinize the Biden administration's handling of both domestic and international crisis amidst global turmoil. Israel's geopolitical and potentially prophetic significance takes the spotlight, and we're bringing you every intricate detail. Plus, don't miss our comments section where we hear your voices, and stay tuned for Looking at You, spotlighting a person shaking the socio-political scene. All this and more as we dissect, discuss, and dive deep. Over to you, Gary.
Good evening, America. Welcome to N3 Primetime, where we navigate through the rough seas of our nation's news with the steady hand of truth and perspective. We're in a tempest, folks, an unfolding global crisis with Israel and the U.S. in the thick of it, our homeland security threatened and administrative response questionable at best. Tonight we're breaking down why these international events and national threats aren't just distant tales. They're knocking on our very doors, affecting our markets, our safety, and yes, our future. It all boils down to one thing: stability in our nation and in your personal life. And speaking of stability, folks, let's talk about something a little closer to home, your financial future. Ever feel like you're sailing a vast sea of economic uncertainty, not sure where to anchor safely? Well, our friends at Noble Gold Investments, they get that. Investing in precious metals might sound like navigating through stormy financial waters, but with Noble Gold, it's like having a seasoned captain at your helm. Real customers affirm no pressure, just honest guidance and comprehensive answers, making securing a future less of a burden. Don't let your financial ship sink in these turbulent times, folks. Right now, Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful bullion coin for qualified accounts. Steer your way to financial stability with Noble Gold. Visit nextnewsgold.com and secure your financial harbor today. That's nextnewsgold.com, your compass in this financial storm. And the telephone number you can call them, they're waiting to hear from you. It's on the screen, 877-646-5347. And speaking of storms, Angie, I understand you've been tracking some heavy weather in our political sphere as well. What are you bringing to the table on tonight's episode? Good evening, America. Welcome to N3 Primetime, where we navigate through the rough seas of our nation's news with the steady hand of truth and perspective. We're in a tempest, folks, an unfolding global crisis with Israel and the U.S. in the thick of it, our homeland security threatened and administrative response questionable at best. Tonight we're breaking down why these international events and national threats aren't just distant tales. They're knocking on our very doors, affecting our markets, our safety, and yes, our future. It all boils down to one thing: stability in our nation and in your personal life. And speaking of stability, folks, let's talk about something a little closer to home, your financial future. Ever feel like you're sailing a vast sea of economic uncertainty, not sure where to anchor safely? Well, our friends at Noble Gold Investments, they get that. Investing in precious metals might sound like navigating through stormy financial waters, but with Noble Gold, it's like having a seasoned captain at your helm. Real customers affirm no pressure, just honest guidance and comprehensive answers, making securing a future less of a burden. Don't let your financial ship sink in these turbulent times, folks. Right now, Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful bullion coin for qualified accounts. Steer your way to financial stability with Noble Gold. Visit nextnewsgold.com and secure your financial harbor today. That's nextnewsgold.com, your compass in this financial storm. And the telephone number you can call them, they're waiting to hear from you. It's on the screen, 877-646-5347. And speaking of storms, Angie, I understand you've been tracking some heavy weather in our political sphere as well. What are you bringing to the table on tonight's episode?
Tonight, we're uncovering stories that don't just make headlines, but shake the very foundations of what we believe. Picture this: Tesla Supercharger stations, an emblem of a green future powered by diesel. We'll dissect the reality behind the electric vision. In stark contrast, Israel empowers its citizens amidst rising threats, distributing firearms to fortify national security. And as a compromising photo of Frank Biden surfaces, the scrutiny intensifies on the Biden family's activities and transparency. Meanwhile, our very own borders teeter precariously on the brink with potential threats perhaps already within our walls. And as we dwell amidst these tensions, Bill Gates looks toward a future, a 3D printed, fishless future, that is. Can technology save our oceans and satisfy our palates? We've got it all, stories that touch our lives, challenge our thinking, and demand our attention because they matter to our nation, to our families, and to our future. Now for our first deep dive of the evening. Gary, over to you for that first special report.
In an era where global tensions run high and political missteps could tip the scale towards an unprecedented conflict, startling revelations emerge. Former President Donald Trump breaks his silence, warning of a future darker than anything we've faced before, the ominous shadow of World War III. As Israel becomes the focal point of international scrutiny, our republic finds itself at a crucial crossroads with choices and consequences that could alter the course of history. Tonight we dive deep into these urgent developments and their profound implications for every American. Stay with us till the very end, where we unearth ancient prophecies that seem chillingly relevant today. You don't want to miss our final thought. The tumultuous events in the Middle East are becoming impossible to ignore, especially when our former Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump, drops a bombshell. It happened in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, amidst a sea of supporters hanging on to his every word. Trump paints a picture that many of us might have thought was relegated to history books, a world on the brink of its third global conflict. His assertion, supported by recent events, posits a grave reality. The aggressive actions in Israel, led by a militant group, Hamas, are not just isolated incidents in a distant land, but potential precursors to a more significant worldwide catastrophe. He says we are in very, very grave danger of having a World War III. That's what he declared. The emphasis on the word very twice punctuates the urgency of his message. It wasn't just a plea to his base or a political talking point. It was a clarion call to every American citizen to wake up and pay attention. He paints a dire scenario of this impending conflict. And according to Trump, this wouldn't be a regular war where tanks go back and forth firing rounds across a border. No, he warned this would be a war of obliteration. Watch.
Great serious. We are in very, very grave danger of having a World War III. And this will be a war of obliteration. This will not be a war with, I say, army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. This is the real deal. And we have a man that he can't even walk off a stage. He walks off a stage. He finishes his speech. He looks, oh, well, he can't find. He has no idea. You know, there's always a stair there, a stair here. You could even walk off the front, jump or something, do something. He usually walks to the back into a wall. Yeah, there's a wall there. He walks right into a wall. Can't walk off the stage, can't put two sentences together, and yet he's negotiating with President Xi of China.
So why is this prediction coming now? And why from Trump? The former president's criticism of the current administration offers some clues. His candid words on President Biden's physical state during speeches were not just jabs at a political rival, but a genuine concern about the leadership of our nation. He can't even walk off a stage. That's what he said, a clear jab at Biden's age and his vigor. Beyond the digs, the question arises, how can a leader struggling with such basics handle the intricate web of global politics and diplomacy? The answer seems clear when you look at the ground realities. The recent and swift incursion by Hamas into Israel resulted in the tragic loss of life of over 1,000 Israelis, and more pertinently, for Americans, at least 9 U.S. citizens. Now I believe the number is up to 14. With reports suggesting Americans have also been taken hostage by Hamas, this crisis deepens. As if this isn't alarming enough, there's evidence pointing to Iran directly backing Hamas. With ties between Iran and the U.S. already strained, this raises serious concerns. More shocking revelations emerged directly from the top Biden spokesman, John Kirby, who indicated that multiple Americans have been killed and remain unaccounted for in the conflict. The gravity of the situation is undeniable. Watch.
We are also very, very closely coordinating with Israeli officials about the status of American citizens. We sadly know that a few have been killed. We also know that there are many more that are unaccounted for. We don't know where they are. We don't know what condition they're in. And nothing's more important to us than their safety and security. So we're going to stay lashed up with Israeli officials on that as well.
The international scene provides some unsettling answers. Unconfirmed yet widely circulating reports suggest that Iran has played a significant role in supporting Hamas' full-scale aggression. This isn't the first time Iran finds itself in the crosshairs of controversy with the U.S. Remember the U.S.-Iran deal? That agreement unfroze a massive $6 billion in assets for Iran, ostensibly for humanitarian purposes. Yet many now wonder whether these funds have indirectly fueled the current conflict. The connection between U.S. money, Iran, and Hamas-led actions is a treacherous triangle that needs more scrutiny. But don't just take our word for it. Senator Ted Cruz, not one to mince words, provides a scathing critique of the Biden administration's policy. He stated that the Hamas-led aggression is nothing more than a grotesque act of war. His anger is palpable, especially when he alludes to the fact that the Biden administration was, in essence, funding this act of war by sending billions to Iran. Watch.
The nation of Israel is at war. The attack that has unfolded in the last 24 hours is the worst attack on Israel in over 50 years. We've seen over 300 Israelis murdered. We've seen over 1,500 Israelis wounded. We've seen over 3,000 missiles fired by Hamas into Israel. This is a grotesque act of war, and I'll tell you, watching the videos of what is happening, these Hamas terrorists, they're targeting civilians, they're murdering women, they're murdering children, they're murdering the elderly, they're firing into a rock concert they just fired randomly. They are brutally raping women, and they're brutally raping children, and they're dragging them back to Gaza. These are horrific war crimes. And look, what is infuriating is this attack was paid for by billions of dollars that Joe Biden sent to Iran, sent to the Ayatollah. In recent weeks, Biden sent over $6 billion to the Ayatollah. Hamas is a proxy for Iran. And in the last 2 years, Biden has allowed the Ayatollah to make over $40 billion. Not only that, the Biden administration sent millions of dollars directly into Gaza. They knew that the money going into Gaza would fund Hamas in acts of terrorism. They actually got a waiver from U.S. anti-terrorism laws to send that money into Gaza. I led a group of senators calling on the administration to stop sending money to these terrorists. Well, the terrorists that Joe Biden is funding, they're the ones right now murdering Israelis, raping Israelis, targeting children. This is grotesque. And I got to say tonight, Brian, it is important that the people of Israel understand America stands with you. We need a president of the United States who stands up and says, we stand unequivocally with the state of Israel. This act of war, this act of terrorism, it is horrific, it is barbaric, and we stand with civilization against barbarism and terror and evil.
In these turbulent times, when the world feels unpredictable, one thing you shouldn't have to worry about is a good night's sleep. Just as a republic needs strong leadership to ensure peace, our bodies require quality sleep for strength and resilience, and that's where Sleep Miracle Plus comes in. Recommended by experts at the Sierra Integrative Medical Center, this blend is like a peace treaty for your body and mind. It eases you into sleep, ensuring you wake up feeling rested and rejuvenated. It's the restful solution for these restless times. Hurry over to GetSleepMiracle.com for a special offer, 50% off with auto ship and a buy one, get one free promotion. So now where does this leave us, the citizens of this great republic? Under the Trump administration, many would argue that there was a semblance of peace in the Middle East, primarily seen in the historical signing of the Abraham Accords. That era represented a strategy of strength and peace through those Abraham Accords. They were a testament to this approach, a peace deal that few thought was possible. Yet here we are, mere months later, with the region in turmoil. The recent developments beg the question, was the so-called peace just a temporary lull before the storm? The answer, unfortunately, seems to be leaning towards the latter. The Biden administration's approach to the Middle East, some critics argue, lacks the assertiveness and directness that Trump's diplomacy had. Instead of peace through strength, the current strategy appears to be one of appeasement and reactive measures. And amidst the escalating tension, President Biden's response, or the lack thereof, raises eyebrows. On Monday, when the world needed leadership amidst the potential of a nuclear conflict, Biden chose to remain absent. Top spokesman John Kirby filled the void, appearing on Fox News, but rather than addressing the imminent threats from Hamas and the rising tensions on the Lebanon border with Hezbollah terrorists, the discussion took a bizarre turn. Kirby, representing the Biden administration, declared climate change as a more significant existential threat than even a nuclear war, leaving Fox News host Martha McCallum and many viewers taken aback. Watch this.
I want to play this soundbite for you that is just last month in Vietnam and ask you if this still holds for the president. Watch.
The only existential threat humanity faces, even more frightening than a nuclear war, is global warming going above 1.5 degrees in the next 10 years.
Given all the nuclear players in these two areas where we are now engaged on, does the president stand by that comment?
Absolutely, he does. Climate change is an existential threat. It could, it actually threatens and is capable of wiping out all human life on Earth over time. I mean, I don't know how more existential you can get to that, but that doesn't mean that we walk away from our obligations, our national security interests in very dangerous parts of the world.
John, he said it was more frightening than a nuclear war. Is that it's more frightening than a nuclear war in this moment?
The president believes wholeheartedly that climate change is an existential threat to all of human life on the planet. That's just science. That's a fact, Martha. But it doesn't mean that we turn our back on the other challenges facing this country and our allies and partners around the world.
Wow. And while international conflicts often seem distant, the repercussions are closer than we think. Global economies, including ours, are tightly intertwined. A major conflict in one part of the world can send shockwaves across global financial markets. Our republic's economy, jobs, and daily lives are influenced by these events. Furthermore, the safety of American citizens, both home and abroad, is at risk. The news of American hostages and the tragic loss of American lives underscores this. We must also consider the long-term effects on our military personnel deployed in these regions and the mental and emotional toll on their families. The situation in the Middle East, especially concerning Israel and Gaza, isn't just another news headline for us. It's a direct reflection of our nation's leadership. The decisions made at the highest level and their long-term implications for every American. The prediction of World War III is not just a doomsday scenario, but a possibility we must consider and act upon. As the world seemingly spirals into chaos and uncertainty, it's hard not to recall the words of Jesus Christ, who once spoke of birth pains, signaling the end times. Many believers see the current events as harbingers of the prophesied Battle of Armageddon, but amidst the fear and trepidation, there is an eternal beacon of hope. For it was also said, when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. In this moment of global crisis, let these words serve as a reminder that while battles may rage and nations may falter, there is a greater narrative at play. In the face of adversity, we're called not to despair, but to stand steadfast, look upward, and embrace the promise of a brighter, eternal dawn. Angie, a surprising twist in clean energy news. Diesel is unexpectedly powering America's largest Tesla Supercharger. Over to you.
America's largest Tesla Supercharger station in Coalinga, California, is reportedly powered by diesel. Energy expert David Blackman confirmed the diesel run setup and suggested similar stations exist. This specific location boasts 98 high-speed Tesla chargers powered by a diesel generator located near an adjacent Shell station. Blackman comments on the public misconception about power sourcing, saying some might believe it comes from the sky. He recalled finding a diesel-powered station at a Houston supermarket years ago and highlights that the infrastructure needed for EVs is still lacking. Get the whole story. Tap the link in our bio. Gary, Trump drops a startling hint about the next potential terror hotspot in recent talks. Your insights?
Ladies and gentlemen, as the winds of uncertainty gust across our great republic, a resonating alarm has been sounded by none other than President Donald Trump. He brings to light a chilling possibility that assailants akin to those who wreaked havoc in Israel might now lurk in our midst. The reason? A border policy that might be more porous than we've ever imagined. And as I guide you through this unnerving narrative, it's imperative to stay with me until the end. The final thought will reveal the profound implications of this looming shadow over our homeland. In this great republic, the security of our homeland remains paramount. We're examining a grave concern tonight emanating from none other than President Donald Trump. He's not one to mince words, and his latest disclosure has left many Americans uneasy. Trump, in a post on Truth Social, didn't issue just a warning, he unleashed a wake-up call. He suggests that those responsible for the terror activities in Israel might have infiltrated American soil. But what is the root cause of this? Well, Trump believes it's President Joe Biden's more lenient border policies. As we unpack this, let's take a first look at some of the numbers. Data, after all, doesn't lie. The U.S. terrorist screening data set has flagged a staggering 216 individuals. Among these, 160 are foreigners, while 56 are U.S. citizens. This isn't just a mere data point, folks. It's a glaring red flag. But the concern doesn't stop here. NBC News, in a recent expose, has shared some more startling statistics. Migrants from the Eastern Hemisphere entering the U.S. have more than doubled in just a year. To provide context, we're looking at 228,000 in fiscal year 2023, a sharp rise from 110,000 the previous year. Now let's think for a moment, where are these migrants predominantly coming from? Real America's Voice journalist Ben Berquam provides us with a worrying answer. He reveals a significant influx from Syria crossing into the U.S. through the ever-controversial U.S.-Mexico border. The footage that he's captured, shot in Lukeville, Arizona, paints a troubling picture. Take a look.
Where are you from? India? India? ¿De dónde son? Where are you from? Colombia. Huh? Djibouti? Yes. Wow, Djibouti. Long ways. You know where everyone else is from?
Yeah, from Senegal.
Senegal. All Senegal?
Yes.
¿De dónde son?
Ecuador.
Ecuador. India? Huh? India? Everyone India? About 30 here. Had 150 down at the camp. They're dealing with them down there. And actually, as I look down the road, there's a whole nother large group coming. Again, broke this story about 2 months ago. Had never seen anyone come through here, and then all of a sudden it was just massive, massive groups coming. Right after Title 42 ended, this became one of the new hot spots. So we're gonna head down the line and see what else we can find. Where are you from?
Africa.
Which country?
Senegal.
Senegal.
Yes.
Where are you going? New York?
Yeah, I'm going to Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Senegal?
New York.
New York? New York? Senegal? Senegal? Senegal?
Senegal.
Where are you going? New York?
Oui.
New York?
New York.
Okay, New York. Senegal? 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 Where are you going?
Ohio.
Ohio. Senegal? And Ohio? 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 Wow, a lot of Ohio. Senegal and then Ohio? Are you going to Ohio? Ohio? Senegal? Well, sorry to my cousins out there. They're coming to Ohio. Senegal?
Senegal.
Senegal? 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 Where are you going? New York? New York? New York? New York? Senegal?
Senegal.
What's your name?
Suleiman.
Suleiman?
Suleiman.
Senegal? Where are you going? New York? Huh? Where? New York? Washington. Where are you going? New York?
Yeah, New York.
New York, New York? Okay, Eric Adams, here they come. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Eric Adams, there you go. Here they come. Senegal?
Senegal.
Okay. So we got the water droppers out here. Everybody doing their pit stop to get some waters. And the line just keeps coming. Senegal? Senegal?
Senegal, yes. Senegal.
Where are you going? New York? Okay.
Senegal.
Where are you going? New York? New Jersey? California? New York? New York? They're coming. New York, be ready. They're coming. Senegal?
Senegal.
Where in America are you going? Ohio, New York, California, New York? Everybody? New York? New Jersey? Mauritania? Mauritania? Senegal. Where are you going? New York? New Jersey? New York. New York? All right. Ooh, baby. There you go. Hey, you thought it was bad before. Strap in. It's getting a whole hell of a lot worse. And the sad thing is, we just saw what happened in Israel. It's coming to America. We're inviting it in. I take that back. Biden and the Democrats are inviting it in.
The gravity of the issue is brought into sharper focus when we consider President Trump's well-known metaphor for potential dangers, the snake, a poem he's recited multiple times to illustrate the perils of blind trust. The underlying message, beware of what you let in. It might turn on you. His recent recitation of this poem isn't just a performance, it's a poignant reminder. If you haven't watched it yet, the intensity is palpable. Watch.
This is the snake, and people love it, and I do it if people want to hear it. Some people have heard it, some people haven't, but we'll do it, right? On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Poor thing, she cried, I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you, right? Border people coming in. I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived, she found the pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, cried the vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried, but if I hadn't brought you in by now, you truly would have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed him and held him tight. But instead of saying, thank you, ma'am, the snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, cried the vicious snake. Oh, this is so sad to hear. Look, she's crying in the front. Don't cry. Learn from this. She's crying. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me. But why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. That's what's happening on our border. That's what's happening on our border.
That's exactly what's happening on our border. But as we often say, there are two sides to every story. On one hand, we have these warnings, this data, this genuine concern. But on the other hand, we should consider how do we navigate our lives, our future in these uncertain times. Navigating a country's borders is much like safeguarding our investments. Uncertainty looms, but Noble Gold Investments is a beacon. Picture gold as a fortified boundary, always standing firm. And here's the word on the street from customers. Honest guidance, no pressure. So secure your future amidst these uncertain times. Right now, they even offer a free 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful coin for qualifying accounts. Navigate to nextnewsgold.com. Secure, just like our border should be. Continuing our deep dive, Kash Patel and Steve Bannon, they add another layer to this narrative. They've pointed out a significant oversight by the Biden administration. They've reportedly lost track of 24 known terrorists on American soil. Watch.
They detected that 24 known terrorist affiliates had illegally crossed into the country from the southern border. And here's the scarier part. They don't know where they are today. That is who they know they missed. So the question you have to ask, Steve, is how many hundreds, if not thousands, of cartel members and terrorist allies and CCP affiliates infiltrated through the southern border, because they're coming in at the rate of what, 21,000 a month, that the U.S. does not know about, and Joe Biden wants to give them ID cards so they can come in.
21,000 a month. We had 260,000.
Sorry,
oh,
yeah,
no, 260,000. That would be 26 combat divisions of what we know. There's another 100,000, another 10 combat divisions of gotaways. The scale of this is so overwhelming, and the IG just said we don't track them.
We don't. And it goes back to the question we were talking about earlier.
Here's my point, but Cash going to come. That's why I need everybody in this audience to see the footage. We can't play all the footage. It's too horrific, even on a streaming service. Everybody in the audience, every adult, this is not for children, every adult should take some time today to see the footage of what these animals did to the people in Israel. And these are just, you know, these are the old women, these are families, they're shooting children, the girls. Okay? That's going to happen in the United States of America. That day is coming. Write that down. That day is coming because of what we're allowing to happen on the southern border.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, just think about it. Do the math. They admitted to us they have 24 terrorists here in America they can't track. 220,000 a month. What if 1% of those individuals were affiliated, 1%, with criminal organizations that we know of, with cartels that we know of, with foreign terrorist organizations that we know of, and they are in and around America and have been moving in and around America for 2+ months with CCP funding, Iranian support, Mideast terrorist organization financing, all to do one thing: establish sleeper cells in the U.S. and wait for the right time to do this to us.
Now let's analyze the scale of this. With the current influx, even if just a mere 1% of these 220,000 individuals have ties to entities with malicious intent, the potential threat magnifies. In layman's terms, 2,200 potential threats monthly. And as the administration oversees funds for borders in Ukraine, the gaping holes in our own defenses remain. As our borders become a focal point of discussion, the Democrats and sanctuary supporters are under increasing scrutiny. Is their stance adding to the problem or helping to resolve it? The rising U.S. terror threat is now in the spotlight. Reports indicate the loss of 24 known terrorists within our borders. Cartel terrorists and even CCP elements are feared to be entering through the southern border. With 220,000 individuals coming in every month, the implications of even 1% of them having ties to criminal groups are enormous. The administration's focus on other global issues like climate change and domestic concerns, while essential, cannot overshadow the immediate threats. With significant funds earmarked for Ukraine's border, the question remains: are our own borders getting the attention they deserve? The looming possibility of another terror event due to these seemingly lax border policies has set alarm bells ringing. As we wrap up the segment, the central concern resurfaces. Are we ready as a nation if those who raided Israel attempts to strike us? Only time will tell. So in wrapping up, we're compelled to ponder, at what cost does negligence come? The recent atrocities of the Hamas attack in Israel serve as a haunting reminder of the very real threats that persist globally. Yet, while dangers lurk, our borders appear more permeable than ever before under President Joe Biden's watch. Every American should pause and reflect on the gravity of the situation. President Trump's warning isn't merely political rhetoric. It's a clarion call for vigilance. Our homeland security is paramount, and now more than ever, the threat feels palpable. It is incumbent upon us, the proud citizens of this republic, to demand robust border protection, ensuring the safety and sanctity of our nation. America's legacy isn't just about the freedom we cherish, but also the security we must never take for granted. Over to Angie now with a quick update on a surprising shift on Israel's gun control policy. Angie?
In response to rising threats, Israel's national security has taken decisive steps to bolster the nation's security. He has moved to distribute firearms to the public, a significant departure from earlier gun control measures. As part of this effort, the ministry has bought 4,000 Israeli-made rifles for local security teams across towns and cities. Reports indicate armed civilians have successfully thwarted attacks on the Gaza border. The move has seen a marked rise in citizens, especially women, acquiring firearm licenses. The aim is clear: empower citizens, enhancing overall national security. Get the whole story, tap the link in our bio. And now Gary has a special report scrutinizing President Biden's response amidst a burgeoning crisis. Gary?
Imagine this. While winds of crisis blow across international borders, our leader chooses barbecue over boldness. The stark difference between a Sunday feast and Monday's eerie silence paints a picture that every American should see. Tonight we dive deep into a tale of 2 days where leadership seems overshadowed by light bulbs. Yes, you heard that right. Stay with me for a story that reveals not just facts, but also the state of our nation's leadership. And believe me, by the end of tonight's report, my final thought might just redefine the way you see actions, optics, and yes, even outdoor lighting. Sunday was a day like any other at the White House if you were just passing by. This sun beamed down, lending its glow to the historic building that has stood witness to countless international incidents and responses. And on this particular Sunday, the aroma of barbecue wafted through the air, mingling with the notes of a band playing in the vicinity of the White House Rose Garden. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, it was confirmed, were hosting a barbecue for the White House executive resident staff and their families. A heartwarming gesture, of course, celebrating those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, making the administration's day-to-day functions possible. Brian Bennett, from Time magazine, he captured the scene, penning observations about the musical emanations that he'd detected. The juxtaposition of these merry sounds against a backdrop of international unrest was, however, impossible to ignore. By Monday, the winds had shifted. Urgent news began to pour in, painting a grim picture. A minimum of 9 Americans had tragically met their end in Israel. This was no minor international blimp. It was a major incident that demanded attention, a response, and most critically, leadership. Furthermore, with several Americans now held hostage by the known terror group Hamas, the situation couldn't be more critical. The flames of crisis were licking at the very principles the United States stands for. Yet come Monday morning, Biden's reaction was astonishing. Instead of stepping up to the plate, displaying the kind of assertive leadership the situation demanded, Biden decided to call it a day. Such a move, especially given the urgency of the situation, raises pressing questions about the administration's actual priorities. And adding fuel to the fire, not long after, a chilling message from a Hamas spokesperson hit the airwaves. Their audacious threat: for every Israeli airstrike, they would execute hostages. Now, whether or not you're an advocate for strong foreign policy measures, one fact remains indisputable. American lives were and are at stake. With the barbecue from the day prior and the contrasting silence on Monday, even the casual observer might wonder about the timing of these events. Could there be a more stark contrast? The Israeli ambassador to the U.S., he's made the rounds on the news channels, confirming on CNN the harrowing reality of Americans held captive by the Hamas militants. The atmosphere was palpably tense. The situation in the Middle East reached an all-time high. The fate of these Americans hung precariously in the balance. Watch.
Can you give us more clarity about how many Americans are among the hostages?
All I can say is that we know there are Americans among the hostages, but I cannot provide more details at this point.
If this were an isolated incident, perhaps the benefit of doubt might be extended. But when put alongside other global crises, the pattern becomes more discernible. This isn't the first time questions have been raised about Biden's actions or lack thereof during pivotal moments. The heartbreaking incident in Afghanistan, where Afghan Americans fell behind, still lingers in recent memory. Fox News correspondent Peter Doocy provided another layer to the unfolding narrative. Despite it being a federal holiday, the D.C. government seemed operational, albeit a reduced capacity. A usual indicator of the president's presence, a Marine outside the West Wing, was conspicuously absent on Monday. Amidst the global turmoil, Doocy's observation added a domestic layer of intrigue. Was the president absent during this barbecue? Where was the leadership America so desperately sought? The White House response, while detailed, felt like a rehearsed dance around the core issues. They pointed out Biden's phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu and defended the barbecue as a long-planned appreciation event for non-political staff. But what was glaringly missing was a public address, a reassurance to the American people. Watch.
It's possible that they could lift the so-called lid and do something publicly, but that is extremely uncommon. It's a federal holiday here in Washington, D.C., and so the federal government kind of operates still, despite everything happening in Israel and Americans who have been killed or captured, reportedly. They're still operating with kind of a skeleton crew. And as we know, because we deal with this sometimes when there is a crisis happening either at home or abroad, you can generally tell if the president is in the Oval Office or the Situation Room because there will be a Marine sentry stationed outside the West Wing, and we can look down our position down the driveway, and I don't see a Marine standing there. Doesn't mean that the president's not working on this, but it does just kind of go more to the feel here on campus that it is a federal holiday and things are going off as planned. People are out of the office, they're working remotely. We also have some more about this barbecue yesterday. We were up and down to the live shot position all afternoon. We started to hear music coming from the Rose Garden. We asked what was going on. We were told that there was a barbecue for some staff. I have a statement now. I asked the White House how long President Biden was actually there, and I'm going to read back what they sent me in full. President Biden has been consistently engaged in supporting Israel as they defend themselves against these brutal terrorist attacks. Yesterday, after another call with Prime Minister Netanyahu and ordering the American military to provide aid to the IDF to ensure that they have what they need, the president held a long-scheduled event to thank the hard-working non-political staff who keep the White House running, operating the kitchens, cleaning the White House, and helping keep the complex safe. This date was chosen because there were not White House activities that would require their work and they could bring their families. They deserve recognition, and no small petty comments from partisan media or elected officials change that. And so we are told President Biden is on top of all this, but he's not going to tell us that in person today. Brian.
The devastation on the ground in Israel further underscores the gravity of the situation. Over 1,000 Israelis lost their lives to the aggressive moves by Hamas. More than 100 remain held hostage. Preliminary videos from the region depict a decisive retaliation from Israel's military against suspected militant bases in the Gaza Strip. Rumors began to circulate about Iran's potential backing of Hamas, and ties are being drawn between the U.S.-Iran deal, which led to $6 billion in assets being unfrozen and transferred to Iran, and this surge in violence. Could this asset unfreezing be indirectly bolstering terror outfits like Hamas? And what can only be described as the pinnacle of presidential proactivity, the White House decided that the most profound way to address the Israel crisis was to, wait for it, change the light bulbs. Yes, amidst the global unrest, the White House shone bright in the blue and white hues of the Israeli flag commemorating a 75-year relationship. Perhaps the lighting choice doubles as a bedtime nightlight for Biden? But don't worry. A tweet from Biden reassures us. Tonight, America says clearly to the Israeli people, to the world, and to the terrorists everywhere that we stand with Israel, and that will never change. So long as our nation's stance is tweetable and our lights are color coordinated, I think we can all rest easy, just like Joe Biden does. Ladies and gentlemen, in the storied halls of history, leaders are remembered not just for their words or their deeds, especially in the face of adversity. As the world grappled with the horrifying news of Americans held hostage, our nation's response was shockingly a barbecue, followed by changing light bulbs. Perhaps those new bulbs at the White House could illuminate the path to decisive leadership? But hey, let's not be too hasty. After all, color-coordinated lighting might be the new diplomatic strategy we've all been waiting for, right? As we close tonight, remember this. When true leadership was needed, when American lives were at stake, our response was a change in wattage. While we can joke about it, the reality is stark. America deserves better. Sleep tight knowing that, at least for now, our nation's stance is both tweetable and glow in the dark. Good night, and may God bless our republic. Angie, turning to a controversy surrounding President Biden's brother and a compromising photo? Wow, what runs in the family, I guess, huh? What can you tell us?
A compromising photo of Frank Biden, President Joe Biden's younger brother, has emerged on a website known for adult content. Uploaded in 2018 to guyswithiphones.com, Daily Mail discovered the image and reached out to Frank for verification. He recognized himself in the photo, but strongly denied posting it, hinting at the possibility of his phone being hacked. The investigative nonprofit Marco Polo, known for probing the Biden's family's political dealings, was the first to uncover this. Frank's only comment? He hadn't viewed the picture and that any intimate photo would only be for his longtime partner, Mindy Ward. This discovery adds another layer to the ongoing scrutiny surrounding the Biden family. Get the whole story, tap the link in our bio. Over to Gary now with a special report on a dire warning from Iraq that's sending shockwaves through Washington.
Tonight, on our special report, echoes of a warning from Iraq, intertwined with firm declarations from both U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The global stage is tense. Hadi Al Amiri, leader of Iraq's Iranian-backed Badr organization, has a message for Washington. Take sides with Israel and there will be consequences. While Netanyahu remains resolute, vowing to protect Israeli citizens against brutal Hamas attacks, Senator Graham has his own stern message for the Middle East, especially Iran. This unfolding drama isn't about distant politics. It's a story of potential risks to our servicemen and women and the decisions our republic must make in these precarious times. How will these verbal volleys shape America's path forward? Stay with us, because by the end of this report, I'll share a crucial final thought that every American needs to hear. So let's dive right in. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been forthright in his message. According to him, Israel did not start this fight, but they are determined to end it. The ruthlessness of recent attacks by Hamas, especially on innocent Israeli citizens, has painted a grim picture of the volatile situation in the Middle East. Netanyahu doesn't shy away from drawing parallels between the brutality of Hamas and that of ISIS. By fighting Hamas, he insists Israel isn't just protecting its own citizens, but is also taking a stand for all nations against such heinous acts. And he's grateful for the global leaders who are standing by Israel, especially highlighting his appreciation for President Biden and the U.S. Congress. If you're curious about his exact words, here's what he had to say.
Israel is at war. We didn't want this war. It was forced upon us in the most brutal and savage way. But though Israel didn't start this war, Israel will finish it. Once the Jewish people were stateless. Once the Jewish people were defenseless. No longer. Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. The savage attacks that Hamas perpetrated against innocent Israelis are mind-boggling, slaughtering families in their homes, massacring hundreds of young people at an outdoor festival, kidnapping scores of women, children, and elderly, even Holocaust survivors. Hamas terrorists bound, burned, and executed children. They are savages. Hamas is ISIS. And just as the forces of civilizations united to defeat ISIS, the forces of civilization must support Israel in defeating Hamas. I want to thank President Biden for his unequivocal support. I want to thank leaders across the world who are standing with Israel today. I want to thank the people and Congress of the United States of America. In fighting Hamas, Israel is not only fighting for its own people, it is fighting for every country that stands against barbarism. Israel will win this war. And when Israel wins, the entire civilized world wins.
But Israel isn't the only nation with firm stances in this conflict. GOP Senator Lindsey Graham, he's at the forefront, urging America to take decisive action. He's been direct with Iran, entangled with Hezbollah, and there will be a price to pay. Graham's stern warning emphasizes that any Iranian-backed aggression against Israel will not go unanswered. Understandably, this has stirred concerns about the U.S. getting embroiled in another Middle Eastern conflict. Listen for yourself to Senator Graham's assertive message.
So I've been on the phone all day to the Mideast, and I've told our allies and people with connections to Iran, what I would do, I would tell Iran that if Hezbollah attacks Israel, we're going to come after you, the Iranians, and have a coordinated effort between the United States and Israel to put Iran out of the oil business by destroying their refineries. There are 4 major refineries in Iran. They're fixed targets. If Hezbollah attacks Israel, I would make Iran pay a heavy price.
And then how would they respond? Robert O'Brien, a former hostage negotiator, didn't hold back on Kudlow. He was clear. If U.S. hostages are harmed, America might just take action, recalling the firm maximum pressure approach of President Trump towards Iran. O'Brien stresses the need for consistent and stringent policies. He also underscores the importance of learning from past mistakes. He's urging the Biden administration to be vigilant, particularly after the recent overtures made to Iran. It's paramount for America to remain a resolute stance against Iran and safeguard its interests. Watch.
Brian, when will we inflict some damage on Iran?
Well, my guess is if these hostages are hurt, that'll happen. I mean, under President Trump, we had maximum pressure on Iran, and it kept them at bay. And you know, I never thought I'd say, Larry, that we'd look back on the Carter years as the good old days. But Jimmy Carter, after seeing the Russians in Nicaragua and Angola and Mozambique, they finally went too far when they invaded Afghanistan. And Carter said, I was wrong about the Russians, and he changed policies. He was humble enough to say, we've got to start rebuilding the military. And that Reagan defense buildup actually started under Harold Brown in the last year of the Carter administration. We need the Biden administration to have some humility and say, look, we got it wrong. We tried to appease Iran. We gave them billions of dollars. We gave them sanction relief. We treated them well. And they poked us in the eye in response. And it's now time to take a tough line on Iran. I hope that it's good for America. It's bipartisan. It's nonpartisan. We just need to protect ourselves and keep the country safe from these guys.
Now, intertwining with this intricate geopolitical web is a message sounding alarms in diplomatic circles worldwide. Hadi Al Amiri, head of the Iranian-backed Badr organization in Iraq, has voiced a warning loud and clear. Should the U.S. stand alongside Israel with the ongoing conflict with Palestinians, Iraq is prepared to oppose America. This new Iraq, as he portrays it, is unwavering in its support for the Palestinian cause. Our approach to challenges needs adaptation and strength, much like how the human body loses muscle over time. Did you know as early as 30, our body begins losing 5 to 10% of its lean muscle mass every decade? It's this loss that leads many to report lower energy, increased weight, and diminished strength as they age. Think of it like a nation losing its resolve over time. This is why so many, including myself, are turning to a breakthrough product. This innovative blend uses 4 research-backed ingredients to fight age-related muscle and strength loss, and I love that they're offering a whopping 41% off for the rest of the month or until stocks last. To rejuvenate your strength, much like a nation's resolve, visit gainwithgary.com or tap more below this video. Now back to our pressing issue. Al Amiri criticizes certain Arab leaders for leaving the Palestinian cause in the lurch. In his eyes, only the Islamic Revolution and a handful of resistance factions now stand with Palestine. His praise for the recent Hamas attacks against Israel stands out, emphasizing the resilience of the Palestinian people. But the most concerning element of his address was his unmistakable threat to the United States. The message? Any U.S. intervention in support of Israel against the Palestinians could lead to a significant retaliation, even targeting American military bases in the region. Reports from notable news agencies like IRNA and Shafak further echo this sentiment. They suggest that any U.S. base in the area might become legitimate targets for resistance if the U.S. interferes. It's not just threats that are making headlines. Diplomatic moves are in full swing. The foreign ministers of both Iran and Iraq are seeking a meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation urgently. The aim? To address the developing scenario in Palestine, particularly in light of the Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. This was revealed by Tansim News Agency. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Baldalahian, and his, and Iraqi counterpart Fouad Hussein, in a recent telephone conversation, shed light on the ongoing turbulence in Palestine. Both ministers stressed the importance of unity and solidarity among Islamic countries to back the oppressed Palestinian populace. Calls for the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to convene an emergency meeting are getting louder. The objective to deliberate on the present dynamics in Palestine and offer support to both the Palestinian people and the revered Al-Aqsa Mosque, especially considering the assertive actions of Israel. The ministers are seeking coordinated and effective action by Islamic nations. The aim is clear: to aid Palestine and halt Israel's aggressive moves against innocent Palestinian women and children in regions like Gaza and the West Bank. Now, it's pivotal to remember the root cause of this escalating tension. Hamas acts of barbarism sparked this chain of events. Their aggressive actions targeting innocent civilians invoked a swift and forceful retaliation from Israel. While the world watches and mourns the tragic loss of innocent lives, it's essential to recognize that had Hamas refrained from such short-sighted aggression, there would be no call for Israel's fierce response. The ministers might not be reacting with such urgency and determination if it wasn't for Hamas' initial provocations. As debates and discussions continue, let us not lose sight of the series of events that led to the current crisis and the responsibility that lies with all involved parties to ensure peace and safety for all. In the grand tapestry of these geopolitical events, from Netanyahu's determination to Senator Lindsey Graham's resolute stances, there is a silent player that often emerges victorious: the military-industrial complex. It's essential to remember that while figures like Graham can make bold declarations, they personally have nothing to lose. Yet we, the American people, risk our most precious assets, our sons and our daughters in uniform. As this situation continues to develop, it is the decisions of our republic that might place them directly in the line of fire. This isn't just another political maneuvering. It's a very real game where the stakes are the lives of those we hold dear. We must approach these unfolding events with clear-eyed wisdom and caution, understanding that unchecked escalation benefits only a few while potentially costing many. In these testing times, let's hope for clarity, leadership, and a path towards peace. Angie has a news briefing on a concerning uptick in terrorist activity at the U.S. border, signaling a potential crisis. What have you got for us?
Alarming security breaches escalate as the U.S. grapples with the suspected explosion of terrorists at its border. In the wake of the undetected Hamas attack on Israel, fears intensify inside the U.S. about the safeguarding of its own borders. U.S. Customs and Border Protection urgently issued a lookout for males aged 16 to 40 with last-minute one-way tickets to Jordan. While the Biden administration remains reticent about the situation, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy pulls no punches, warning of an overwhelming intelligence failure. As evidence, he cites the skyrocketing numbers of individuals on the FBI's terrorist watch list attempting U.S. entry. The pressing question is the U.S. next in line for undetected terror attack. Get the whole story, tap the link in our bio. Over to Gary now with a special report. Are global leaders overlooking crucial apocalyptic signs amid Israel's conflict with Hamas?
In a world overshadowed by warnings from former leaders and a political landscape teetering on the brink, Israel stands as an emblem of ancient prophecies and modern dilemmas. Amid the tumult of global politics, President Donald Trump's words add a sense of immediacy, echoing concerns of a future where World War III isn't just a theoretical possibility but a looming reality. Against this backdrop, Israel's current struggles become more than just regional conflicts. They're harbingers of prophecies that date back millennia. This evening, we're taking you on a journey through time, from the annals of ancient scriptures to the urgent dispatches of today. With insight from prophecy expert Jeff Kinley, we'll delve into the profound significance of Israel's role in these end-time predictions. And as we navigate this complex narrative, stay tuned for a final thought, a Revelation, that reframes America's position on this unfolding saga and what it means for each of us. In the annals of history, no land has been as hotly contested, as revered, or as mystified as Israel. For centuries, it has stood as a symbol not just of conflict, but of deep-rooted prophecies that span cultures and generations. As we delve deep into the recent events shaking the Middle East, it becomes paramount to question, are we indeed on the precipice of biblical prophecies coming to life? Jeff Kinley, a renowned prophecy expert and author of God's Grand Finale, offers insights that might change our understanding of current events. His analysis ties the strings between ancient scriptures, historical milestones, and the present state of Israel. Watch.
Going through your mind since seeing the news on Saturday morning?
Well, I'd just say this. We were scheduled to fly into Tel Aviv and right this moment that you and I are speaking. And so that was the first thing on my mind is that, well, God's timing and just protecting us from getting there. But I think to me, Billy, it's really just confirmation that we're living in the last days. I mean, the Bible prophesies so much about Israel, conflict in Israel, wars and rumors of wars that are going to take place, earthquakes that are happening right now. All these things that are happening are the precursors, I believe, to the actual end times events that we see in Revelation chapter 6 or 18. So in my mind, it's just more confirmation that we're living in very volatile times, but times that are very prophetic as well.
When we talk about Israel's reemergence on the world stage in 1948, it's not just a historical fact, it's a phenomenon occurring almost 1,900 years after Rome's brutal siege on Jerusalem in 70 AD. Kinley and many believers see this resurgence as nothing short of divine intervention, a miracle in fact. The book of Revelation, an integral part of the New Testament, sheds light on Israel's pivotal role and the events leading to what many believers call the end times. However, for many centuries, with Israel out of the limelight, these prophecies seem more like tales of yore than reality. Kinley, drawing from ancient scriptures, posits a provocative perspective. Israel's recent history, marked by its reestablishment following the Holocaust, is a clear indication that the narrative has drastically shifted. The birth of a nation, followed by persistent conflict, isn't just about geopolitics, as Kinley points out. This conflict has a deeper spiritual root. Watch.
Well, I'll just say this, that all the events in the past 2,000 years have been in the context where there hasn't been a nation Israel. And now that there is a nation, they're in the land, there's been nothing but conflict since then because Satan and those surrounding nations do not want them to occupy the land that God promised to Abraham. And so there's been constant conflict. I mean, Satan is very territorial. And then God promised that land to Abraham. And so I think that's one of the things that really is a telltale sign. It's like this, Billy. I say that when your check engine light comes on in your car, you really need to pay attention to that. Well, God's flashing the check engine light on history and on the nations right now, and particularly Israel. So we do need to pay attention to it.
Yes, we need to sit up and pay attention. Satan and those surrounding nations, Kinley states, do not want Israel to occupy the land that God promised to Abraham. This contention, this constant push and pull is a clear sign that the world needs to take biblical prophecies seriously. One of the most defining moments in Israel's history was the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, a cataclysmic event that reshaped the course of Jewish history. Watch.
Yeah, basically, Rome sent the General Titus into Jerusalem. He laid siege to Jerusalem for many months, eventually conquering Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. He burned the temple, as Jesus declared in Matthew 24. Not one stone was left upon another. You can go there today and see the remnants of that. But that basically caused the Jews to be expelled from that area. There were about 10,000 that were slaughtered immediately right there on the spot. And then in 135 AD, all the Jews were basically banned and banished from the land. So
generations went by, events unfolded, yet the memory of Israel's glory and its significance in the biblical narrative remained undimmed. The reestablishment of Israel in 1948 was more than a political move. was, according to many believers, a fundamental fulfillment of prophecies. This narrative aligns with what Kinley points out in his analysis. Watch.
When Israel comes back on the map, and this was a monumental event. Talk a little bit about the significance of this. You just spoke to it a little bit, but there were a lot of people waiting for this event. Some thought it would never happen, and yet 1948.
Yeah, well, God had predicted this several times. In fact, it's been said that every Old Testament prophet besides Jonah in some way predicts the regathering of the Jews back to the Holy Land. The reason why this is so significant is as we look to the end times prophecies that in the book of Revelation and Daniel, even in 2 Thessalonians and Paul and 1 John with the Antichrist, none of these prophecies can really take place unless Israel's in the land. So you sort of have a step one and a step two. Well, step one has to be Israel being a nation again. And then step two can happen, which is all the end times prophecies. So the precursor for these prophecies happening is the Jewish people being back in the land. And up to half of the Jews in the whole world now are back into Israel. Again, that's just a supernatural gathering together that simply cannot be denied.
Diving deeper into the prophecies, especially in the book of Revelation and other scriptures, it's evident that many events are contingent on Israel's presence and role in the world theater. From the tribulations mentioned in Revelation to the predicted conflicts surrounding Israel, the signs seem to be aligning, pointing towards the culmination of events leading to the prophesied end times. Yet, while history and prophecy offer a panorama of events past and possibly forthcoming, it's the present that concerns most. The rise of Hamas and its aggressive posturing against Israel might seem like yet another chapter in the long history of Middle Eastern conflicts, but could there be more to it? Watch.
Obviously that regathering happened and is continuing to happen. People are continuing to come back into Israel. But in Ezekiel 38, you have this conversation about Gog of the land of Magog. And this is one of the pieces that a lot of prophecy experts will debate over and argue over. But this, in your view, has not yet happened, this invasion, correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a coalition of nations that are surrounding Israel in the book of Ezekiel that essentially come against Israel, including Russia coming down from the north. So there's this alliance that's made between all of these nations. And by the way, every single one of them is a Muslim nation, with the exception, of course, of Russia. They all come together and they have a launch of an attack against Israel in a day. And the Bible describes that it's going to happen in the latter days. It happens during a time when there's a sense of peace and security in Israel and in the land. They're living in cities, unwalled cities that are unprotected. Well, obviously, this invasion has not happened. There's nothing in recorded history because it couldn't have happened before 1948 because there was no Israel. And since 1948, it certainly hasn't happened as well. So it has to be some future date. Many Bible scholars place it around the time of the beginning of what's known as the tribulation period, sometime after the rapture. But we don't know the exact date. We just know that it's going to come sometime in the latter days, but it certainly hasn't happened yet.
In a world fraught with complexities, understanding the intricacies of these prophecies and how they relate to world events becomes crucial. So what does this mean for believers and even non-believers watching from the sidelines? When asked about the palpable tension and the concerns of many who view the current events with trepidation, Kinley offers words of solace rooted in Scripture. Watch.
I would say go to Revelation chapter 4. And in Revelation 4, John sees a throne. He sees that God is in charge of everything, even though the tribulation is about to start in his narrative, that God is on his throne, that all is well. Heaven never panics, never dials 911, never meets an emergency session, and that we can rest in that sovereignty. And as one woman very appropriately said, God's sovereignty is my serenity. Let that control that God has in heaven be your serenity during these times.
Amen. Beautiful words. His message echoes a sentiment shared by many believers that in understanding and faith, we find the strength to persevere. Kinley emphasizes the sovereignty of God, a reminder that irrespective of earthly events, that he is in control. However, in times of widespread uncertainty, with events unfolding at a rapid pace, many wonder, what comes next? What should we brace ourselves for? Watch.
Based on your study of prophecy, what we can know in terms of what do you think the next event on the prophetic timeline is, the next definitive event that you think would happen based on what you see in Scripture?
Well, as you trace through Bible prophecy and the prophecies that relate to the end times, there's one kind of hinge catalyst event that we're waiting on, and it's called the rapture of the church. And I believe that rapture event takes place at the beginning, right before the beginning of the tribulation period. There are no dates to that. There are no real timings that we can attribute to that. It's what we call the doctrine of imminency, meaning it could happen any time. But we don't believe the church, the bride of Christ, is going to be suffering through God's wrath during the tribulation period. So I see that as the very next prophetic event. And then the one right after that, at some point, whether it's weeks or months, will be the signing of that peace treaty with Antichrist that will officially begin the 7-year clock of the tribulation period.
The rapture, as Kinley suggests, stands as the next significant event on the prophetic timeline, a doctrine rooted in the idea that it could occur any time. The rapture, followed by the tribulation, forms a core tenet of many end-time beliefs. To provide further clarity and help navigate these times, Kinley's God's Grand Finale serves as a guiding light. Watch.
It takes us into Revelation, and which you mentioned earlier, obviously the events that happen in Revelation, Israel being present, those events are dependent on that. Talk a little bit about the book and how it might be able to help guide people through some of these subjects.
Well, what's very interesting is when you read back in Psalm 46 and Jerusalem is about to be sieged by Assyria, God tells the Israeli people to be still or to cease striving and know that I am God. In other words, in the midst of a world coming unglued, what I want you to do is to know that I'm God.
In the throes of global turmoil, it's not just about safeguarding our physical and mental well-being, it's about spiritual preparedness, understanding the signs, and finding solace in the knowledge that events are unfolding as they were written. The Israel of today stands as a beacon, a focal point where history, prophecy, and current events all intersect. Through the lens of experts like Jeff Kinley and the scriptures that have guided millions, we get a glimpse into a future both uncertain and foretold. In the intricate dance of global events, America's role remains unwaveringly crucial. As Israel stands at the crossroads of prophecy and present-day upheavals, our republic is summoned to a profound reckoning. The Middle Eastern sands shift underfoot, altering the delicate balance of world affairs. Our choices now, more than ever, have far-reaching consequences, touching lives across continents and through the annals of time. Beyond political stratagems, this is a moment for every American to reflect and remember the words of Jesus Christ, who called upon us to watch the signs and to look up, for our redemption draws near. It's a timeless reminder in an ever-changing world, urging us to see beyond the immediate and recognize the eternal significance of our actions. As the narrative of Israel aligns with ancient prophecies, may we as a nation tread with wisdom, vigilance, and a heart attuned to the divine guidance that has shaped our destiny. Angie, the latest, shifting gears now, to Bill Gates making waves in the food industry with 3D printed vegan salmon. Sounds like an abomination to me. What have you got, Angie?
Bill Gates and other influential figures are looking towards a new food frontier, 3D printed meals. Following 3D printed steaks, now there's 3D printed salmon. This isn't a futuristic dream, it's a reality in Europe. Revo Foods, a food tech startup, began selling 3D printed vegan salmon fillets in select Vienna stores and has expanded online sales throughout Europe. The CEO of Revo Foods, Robin Stimsa, claims the product has a texture and taste resembling salmon, though not identical. The alternative seafood industry's goal? Developing sustainable products that protect our oceans. While some companies use plant-based methods, Revo Foods combines mushroom, roots, and plant fats to replicate salmon texture. Get the whole story? Tap the link in our bio. That concludes my news for this episode of N3 Primetime. Now let's hear from Gary with your comments from the comments section.
Well, Welcome to our special segment on N3 Primetime, the comments section. Today we're shining a light on your voices, the pulse of America. Our first comment comes from Jazz, who says, Carrie Lake would make a great vice president. She is absolutely right. And I couldn't agree more. Carrie Lake has consistently stood up for what she believes in, speaking truths that resonate with many of us. Next up, we have Bill. His words, with Biden's border stand by people, Biden could care less about who comes across. Well, there is an unsettling truth to that. A porous border, uncertain policies. What's the end game here? One has to wonder if security even matters to the current administration. And then there is guest user 4503 pointing out the border alone should be enough to impeach Biden. It's a strong sentiment, but when you look at the gravity of the situation, many might echo that very sentiment. Leadership isn't just about intent, it's about action and results. And so far, the border has been, to put it plainly, a mess. And now, N. Wayland adds another angle, suggesting don't let Obama leave the country. He needs to pay for what he's caused in our country. It's a testament to the lingering sentiment that previous administrations, not just the current one, have played a part in where we are today. And lastly, F. Trunks 21 hits deep, stating the founding fathers gave us all the foundations and tools to prevent this from happening, and Democrats just could not stand to see America prosper and stay strong any longer. Well, there's a profound truth there. Our forefathers indeed left us a blueprint, a roadmap. Yet some seem keen on detouring us from that path. Thank you for sharing your insights, America. Your voice is what keeps this nation's spirit alive. Keep the comments coming. They matter more than you know. Until next time, let's find out who's we're looking at tonight. Tonight's segment of Looking at You, we cast a spotlight on none other than President Joe Biden. Now, before we dive in, remember, this isn't a playground of political banter. No, this is a sober, scrutinized look at the leadership which is steering the ship of our great republic. Now, we've all seen the recent events unfold with a profound sense of frustration and sorrow. Our thoughts remain with the families of the 14 Americans lost in a wave of inexplicable terror overseas. And amid this crisis, we witnessed an action, or should I say, an inaction, that has left us all pondering. Where is the leadership? President Biden took not 1, but 2 days off, ostensibly preparing to address the nation about the Israel situation. When he finally stepped up to the podium, the president spoke for well a mere 11 minutes. 11 minutes to discuss a matter of international import, and swiftly exiting stage left, not a single question entertained. Watch.
Mr. President, what was your reaction?
Now, I'm not here to judge the quantity of the speech, but the quality, the substance, and importantly, the omission. Not one mention of Iran in a speech that by all means should have addressed the burgeoning threat that it poses. Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves at a crossroads, and the path we take demands accountability and transparency from our leaders. In times of crisis, citizens of our republic seek assurance, clarity, and above all, a sense of safety under the firm guidance of leadership. But the evident disregard, the bypassing of pertinent issues, and the outright refusal to address the tough questions points towards an unsettling path, one paved with lackadaisical management of crises and an alarming distance from accountability. So why does this matter to you, to us, to every citizen of this republic? Because leadership demands the trajectory of our nation. It determines it. And silence, especially during trying times, cannot and should not be a response from the top. We the people have the constitutional right to demand answers, to seek accountability, and to ensure that the leadership that steers this republic does so with unyielding commitment and transparency. Our future, our safety, and the legacy we leave for generations to come all hinge upon it. So stick with us as we continue to gaze unblinkingly at the movers and shakers in our nation, ensuring no action or lack thereof goes unnoticed. And that's why we're looking at you tonight, Joe Biden. So we're wrapping up tonight's stories that have raised eyebrows and stirred thoughts, from Trump's stark warnings about a potential World War III due to a spiraling crisis in the Middle East, to startling revelations of possible terror threats already on our soil due to what some are calling lackadaisical border policies. We've brought to light issues that echo in the halls of our national security and international relations, an arguably passive response from the current administration, embodied in barbecues and silent lips while chaos ensues, has thrown a spotlight on the juxtaposition of leadership styles during times of crisis. It's not just about policies, it's about priorities, action, and yes, optics too. As American lives hang in the balance both at home and abroad, amidst it all, the ongoing scrutiny surrounding the Biden family adds another layer of skepticism toward the administration's transparency and credibility. In contrast, the push for 3D printed foods presents an interesting pause, a glimpse into a possible future where sustainability might be seated at our dining tables. And ladies and gentlemen, our stories tonight don't just invite our attention, they demand your scrutiny, your questioning, because at the end of the day, this is about our nation, our security, and our future. We don't just tell stories, we unveil truths that matter to you. We're not just reporters. We're your eyes and ears, bringing the unvarnished reality to your doorstep. So thank you, America, for spending your evening with us here at N3 Primetime. A heartfelt shout out to Angie, whose news briefs tonight brought us sharp insights into unfolding events, reminding us of the crucial role truthful reporting plays in our society. And folks, in a world where unpredictably, much like what we've explored tonight, seems to seep into every global event, every crisis overseas, and even upon our very soil, isn't it vital that we secure something tangible, steadfast, and reliable? This brings me to our sponsor tonight, Noble Gold Investments. Just like we've scrutinized and navigated through the chaotic seas of global events and national predicaments, Noble Gold is here to guide you through securing your financial future amidst the tumult of economic uncertainties. Real customers have shared Noble Gold staff, guided me, no pressure, just honest help. My future feels less like a gamble thanks to their expertise. So don't tread water amidst financial uncertainty. Dive into a secure future with options that they will tailor for you, even offering a free 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful coin for qualified accounts. Beautiful. Now remember, they've been rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau, and users are sharing their 5-star experiences. Don't delay. Visit nextnewsgold.com. They are the only gold company that I trust. Now, we've marched through stories tonight that demand our attention, our scrutiny, and your participation. The live chat's been instrumental in keeping this dialogue alive, insightful, and meaningful. Every share, every comment, every like, they build a community that's engaged and discerning. Let's keep the conversation going on Twitter and down in the comments, standing united as we dissect and understand the world around us. Thank you, America, for choosing to spend your evening navigating the pivotal stories of our time here at N3 Primetime. Before we part ways for tonight, there is a personal note I need to share with all of you, our cherished viewers. Angie and I have experienced a loss in our family, and therefore we will be stepping back from the screen to honor and remember a beloved soul. Consequently, there will be no N3 Primetime tomorrow night. During times of loss, the pause to reflect and honor is paramount, and we're grateful for your understanding and compassion during this delicate time. In our absence, we encourage you to explore these stories we've discussed tonight, to keep the conversations alive in your communities, both online and off, and to remember that informed citizens like you are the beating heart of this nation. We will return on Thursday, continuing to bring forth the unvarnished truth and essential dialogues we all hold dear. God bless you, and good night.